Hello and welcome to this video series, How to Generate Unlimited High Quality Mortgage Leads in 2018 and Beyond. My name is Mitch Smith. I'm the CEO of Fog Pusher and iFunnel, which I'll get to in a second. For those of you who did participate in my webinar about this without my slides, I did get my slides back, and today's presentation and the following videos will be a reorganization of the original slides that I had. I figured rather than do this in a webinar presentation, I just go ahead and share it on YouTube. So we will just jump right into this. This series is for mortgage professionals who are searching for an answer to consistent, high quality lead generation. By the end of this video series, you'll have an actionable step process that you need to take to generate high quality exclusive mortgage leads and generate referrals at scale without being held hostage by lead generation companies that cannot deliver anyway. And I'll talk a little bit about why they can't deliver and what's changed and what it is that we're actually talking about here. In this series, I'm giving you the information that you need to generate leads. My services are available to those who need help filling in the gaps. This is a good time to pay attention. It's not a good time to be on Facebook or playing with your phone or whatever. A lot of people spend a lot of time trying to figure this out. I have, and my presentation is ultimately to help you get your arms around what it is that it takes to generate leads today. Today's overview, we're going to talk about expectations from this video series, disclaimers, an intro to me. We'll also talk about mindset, because that comes before everything essentially, and then we'll talk about high quality mortgage borrowers. My objective is to provide you with the tools and resources that you need in order to be effective in the mortgage industry today and in the future. Times have changed, people are searching and behaving in different ways than they have in the past, and as a result, many mortgage professionals have found themselves frustrated with their abilities or lack of abilities to generate high quality mortgage leads. My objective with this video series is to give those tools back to you, and actually my objective with the work that I do is to put these abilities and capacities back in the hands of mortgage professionals. And my official promise to you, I promise to share the exact model that has allowed me to generate thousands of mortgage and real estate leads, become a top producing LO, and also which has enabled me to help my clients obtain strategic referral partners using active reciprocity. I promise by the end of this video series, you'll be able to run the exact same lead generation model for yourself, or you'll at least have the direction that you need to do so. I promise to show you how this business model will allow you to generate high quality mortgage leads and realtor referrals every day. And finally, I promise you more fun out of life, the ability to provide for yourself and your family with everything you want out of life and everything good that comes with all of that stuff, because that's what this is really all about. Here's a disclaimer. You must be willing to accept the ways that people are changing and adjust your efforts accordingly. I can help you identify those ways and help you figure out how to adjust your daily habits to accommodate those things, but I cannot change the way that people are behaving, and we'll talk more about that in a second. You must have valuable loan products which offer benefits and real advantages to borrowers. You have to have a competing product in your market, and if you don't, I'm not really sure what you're doing, but that's another thing. You can't just scam people or put people in a disadvantageous situation hoping to make more money or whatever, or just having a lack of access to better loan products. Mindset and consistency are the key to everything. You have to be willing to implement new habits. That's really what this is about, is helping you have a framework upon which you can create new habits to attract and engage high quality borrowers. You must be willing to forget about needing to stay in the loop with market forecasts and the news. Ask yourself if it makes any difference in how you do your job. If it doesn't, then drop it. It shouldn't anyway. The fact of the matter is things are happening that happen, and all you can control is your mindset, which we'll get to in a second. But if the information you're consuming is not helping you do your job, then leave it alone. This is not a get-rich-quick scheme. There are no legal get-rich-quick schemes when it comes to mortgage lead generation, and there are proven methods that can be duplicated, and that's what this is about. If you want to be a millionaire, you have to make about $2,800 a day. I can't do anything about the math. This is not a reworking of the numbers or any kind of shortcut to help you get anywhere. This is providing you with an actual framework which you can follow with consistency to obtain your goals and hit your numbers or obtain whatever it is you want to do with your life. House rules, again, no get rich quick people, no manipulative people. The only way to get what you want in life is to help other people get what they want. So this is, again, providing a framework to help you do that. It's not providing you any kind of way to shortcut this and not do these things. How do I know this is any different from anything that I've tried that hasn't worked? Ultimately, I can tell you that it's different, but you should be able to make this inference for a second. In fact, let's break down the situation a little bit. As a mortgage loan originator in today's world, the road to success isn't exactly straightforward. You signed up thinking that you'd be writing up mortgage deals, but come to find out the actual job isn't mortgage, is lead generation. You have to bring qualified prospects on the door. Maybe that's not exactly what you had in mind when you signed up for the gig, but at this point, it really doesn't make any difference. It is what it is. Unless you're working for a company that provides you with leads, then you have to figure this stuff out. So you struggle day in and day out to find the holy grail of quality mortgage leads, but after each turn, you find yourself with less money and plenty of disappointment. And this is happening over and over and over. And I'm sorry if I'm the bearer of bad news, but I'm here to tell you that unless you're prepared to be financially dependent upon Zillow, Bankrate, Trulia leads at $150, $200 or more each, you will never find this holy grail unless you commit yourself to creating new habits to accommodate the change in consumer behavior. And we'll get to defining a high quality mortgage prospect here in a second. Ultimately, you can be, I encourage you to be skeptical about everything that you read. You'll be able to infer pretty quickly from what I'm saying that I'm going to break this situation down for you in a way that you've never seen before and that you've never had broken down to you, and it should start to make a lot of sense pretty quickly. But I'm essentially building value. I'm delivering value first, and if you need my help to put these things in place, then I can do that. But this isn't my system ultimately. This is just a system that accommodates the change in consumer behavior that we're seeing, and it paints a picture as to why and how these things work. Talk about me for a second. I am a mortgage and real estate lead generation consultant. I provide full range digital marketing services. I decided about 2 years into my full-time practice with Fog Pusher that I would focus exclusively on mortgage lead generation and also creating referral systems for mortgage lead professionals, essentially generate leads for real estate professionals and do this with a reciprocity approach. I'm also like I said, a digital marketing samurai. I have a real estate and mortgage background, which has been a big part of my ability to provide solutions that work in regard to digital marketing services. I'm the founder of Fog Pusher and also iFunnel, iFunnel.app. You can see a little bit more on that. I have a lot of interest coming from some very interesting places happening with that project right now. And that project will ultimately transform mortgage lead generation. This presentation I'm giving you today and in subsequent videos in this series will be to help you understand how to utilize the resources that are available right now today to generate mortgage leads. I have something up my sleeve to help the situation a little bit, but ultimately we're dealing with things that are existent and available right now. I've generated many thousands of mortgage leads in many ways, including less advantageous ways. I've generated many, and as a result of doing it in less than ideal ways, I've ultimately figured out the things that work and do not work. And without doing it the less advantageous ways, you can't ever figure that kind of stuff out. Some more about my background. These are actually backwards. This is on my website where you can verify these certifications directly to my licenses that I had. When I was 18 years old, I got my real estate license actually first, and I had that until got that from 2006 to 2009, and I had the opportunity with the real estate to work under one of the top producing real estate brokers in Oklahoma at that time, Linda Almaraz with Coldwell Banker Advantage. When I was 1 year into that, when I was 19, I got my Oklahoma life and health insurance license, and I worked with Primerica. I did not like the setup or life and health insurance, but I did all of it actually really more to learn. But that's what I do. I like to learn about why things work, how things work, and I knew real estate was going to be a key part of it. That's why I got it right when I was 18. It was actually for the education more than anything. Um, and then I went on later in my life after working with some home builder. I worked with a couple home builders, few of them actually, and I got a lot of real industry experience prior to getting the mortgage licenses. I passed all of these license exams on my first attempts. Whenever I had my mortgage license, I was a top producing loan originator with United Built Homes, which I'll get to that here in a second. Those licenses plus an additional 2 years in high-end custom home building. I actually worked another 2 years, well, another 3 years. One with a home builder that specialized in ultra energy efficient custom homes, insulating concrete homes and commercial structures is actually what it's called. We did like insulating concrete form design homes, and then other high performance building component building technology construction methodologies. And then I also worked with Premier Custom Builders in Northeast Ohio. And so this is actually like 4 years of home building. 5+ years is actually more like probably 7 or 8 doing digital marketing. I was a business development manager for a Vapor Products Inc., this was after I started into digital marketing originally on more of a full-time basis. And then ultimately since 2015, I've been doing digital marketing exclusively. So for 3 years of that, it was full time, and since that, then about a year ago, I started doing mortgage and real estate lead generation nearly exclusively. And in the process of doing that in ideal and less than ideal ways, I learned about the things that work and the things that don't work in the situation. So these are Google certifications. So if you combine those previous 2 slides with my Google Digital Sales certification, my mobile site certification, AdWords search certification, and fundamentals, and DoubleClick search and Google Analytics, I'm committed to my craft. I'm constantly learning. This is to be relevant in digital marketing today, you have to consistently take in new information. And so on a weekly basis, I'm constantly taking in new courses, reading new books. I keep myself on top of different perspectives and way of going about different things that I'm doing. And this ultimately keeps me relevant and competitive in today's market, which is crucial. So why am I doing this? I touched on a little bit about the fact that that mortgage lead generation has been a frustration for mortgage professionals here in the last few years. Whenever I decided to start working in mortgage lead generation primarily and specifically, I put out some feelers to people in the business. I was like, is real estate the direction to take? And I remember there was a video by the guy who started Alibaba. There's a video where he talks about opportunity lies where you can find people complaining. And ultimately, people were complaining in the mortgage lead generation space almost exclusively. People were saying, I was able to generate mortgage leads several years ago. I'm not sure what happened, but we have our website up, and it's like, why can we not still get the same type of traction that we've had in the past? And ultimately, I figured this stuff out, but that was my why, and that still is my why. Is there's a lot of suffering that happens in the mortgage lead generation and mortgage real estate, really, too, space. People get into the business thinking, I'm going to sell some houses, I'm going to originate some home loans, and it turns out that your job is actually in lead generation. It doesn't really matter that you have the license, so to speak. To be quite frank, it's like that part doesn't even really matter. As long as you can bring in leads, then that's the primary function of your position. It doesn't matter that you can write up the loans and whatnot. If you could just bring in leads, then you'd be in a situation where you could still, prosper. But you have to do both ultimately. So that's my why, is to help the mortgage industry figure out what this problem is and how to solve it. And I have done just that. And that's kind of what brought this about. So before we get into talking about high quality mortgage leads and talking about what is a high quality mortgage borrower, we need to touch on mindset, because this is the foundation of the remainder of this practice is all about making sure that you have the right mindset, because if you don't, none of this stuff is going to work. Life is a matter of cause and effect. You don't have control over what happens and what people do. You have a control over your mindset, which creates your attitude, which results in the actions that you take. It's a matter of reacting versus responding. It's you have to be able to get yourself into a space where you know at the end of the day you've done what you needed to do that day in order to be okay at the end of the day, regardless of what happens. You can't control whether a realtor shows up for a referral appointment. You can't control whether a prospect comes to a meeting. You can't control if you're on the traffic, if you're in standstill traffic and somebody slams their brakes in front of you, they try to cut you off. If you have these trigger moments and you have these things that trigger you and your emotional response to reaction, really, to put you on this downhill slope that prevents you from doing what you need to do with your day in order to generate high quality mortgage leads, then you are wasting your time with all this stuff. If your attitude isn't right, then you're not going to get any of these things in line. Stress and suffering are always optional. If you're negative, complaining, or unfulfilled, referral partners will avoid you like the plague. Potential clients will avoid you like the plague. Underwriters and your team will avoid you like the plague. They'll be less inclined to go the extra mile for you. Opportunities will be minimal. You'll be wasting your time and energy ultimately. And if you're in this, it's easy to fall into this kind of mindset because you, especially if you're watching the news and you get these reports about shrinking industries and, all these things, it can get you spun into this mindset, but it's just things people are talking about. The fact of the matter is homes still sell, life events still cause homes to sell, and that's why this is the last forecast you ever need to look at. The Mortgage Bankers Association forecast for homes. It doesn't even really matter what the numbers on here. The only forecasts that you need are that life events cause homes to sell, mortgages are not going anywhere, and that you need to quit watching the news. I quit watching the news a couple of years ago. I can't avoid getting on Google without seeing things every once in a while. Difference is I'm not attached to it anymore. I don't have a need to follow it because if it's not a direct impact on what I'm doing with my day-to-day life, then it doesn't matter. And if mortgages go down, then there's more things to pay attention to, like the value of the dollar and whatnot. But that would be felt on a much larger scope. It's like, don't take in these numbers and things if it's just going to keep you from doing what you need to do on a daily basis to succeed. That's the bottom line. So how should you be looking at mortgage lead generation? What we're doing is maximizing attention share in the right places for the right people at the right time along their home buying journey, and we are engaging these people in a relevant way by providing relevant information to accommodate their intent at these different points along their buying journey. And I'll break that down in a second. When you're not writing up deals, put up signs. So I said I'd get back to my experience as a loan originator. When I was originating home loans, I worked with a company, United Built Homes, and they were a mortgage provider, but they also built custom homes using land equity, primarily that people in rural areas outside of Oklahoma City, they had land equity, but they maybe didn't have money to buy a house, but they had verifiable income. So essentially, what we would do is roll their land into a mortgage, and we would build them a house with a no money down construction loan that they could have no payments on for a year or whatever. And then sometimes they would take on some of like the finish aspects of the home, like maybe they do their paint, flooring, things like that. Now there were pros and cons to the whole thing. Looking back in hindsight, they were regulated heavily because they're basically dictating how much this loan was for, and also the payment terms and whatnot of the loan. So there were some implications of that may not have been favorable for people in all situations, but was what it was. The key takeaway from this is I worked under a guy named Wayne Donnelly, and I became a top producer in this company. There were maybe 40 loan officers across 12 offices throughout the Southwest, and I was in the top 2 within my first 6 months of having my license. And it was just because I worked under this guy Wayne, who was a ninja in this business. And basically what he taught me in our entire marketing strategy, all of this stuff, was that whenever we're not writing up deals, we go and put out signs. We would actually get these wood stakes, these thick kind of stakes. They have a pokey bottom. I don't really know what the term is, but we get these pretty heavy duty plastic slides, and this is something that might work for some of you, particularly if you're doing like USDA loans, things like that. You get these pretty heavy duty plastic signs that would slide over this wood post, and then we go out there with a big hammer and then hammer these signs down. And basically, what the sign said were something to the effect of, no money down, home loans built on your property with no money out of pocket, something like that. And then it would have disclaimers at the bottom and have a phone number. So we would go out and put out hundreds of these signs, and I took his advice. I was like, I'll follow you. You know what you're doing in this business. And there were a couple things that we did. One was we put out the signs when we weren't writing up deals, or if I was to and from a meeting, I would take a long way, and on every corner we'd go and hammer these signs up, and the city would come and eventually and take them down, or whoever owned the property, whatever, the signs would get taken down. But by putting up the signs and by putting ourselves in a position to have this rural traffic, we had people that would be calling us all weekend long. I'd have my entire appointment book filled for the next week, and then on my way to those appointments and on the way back, I'd put up these signs. Now, that specific strategy may not be specifically geared towards your situation. Maybe you don't do USDA home loans, or you don't have a no money down program. That's fine. What the key takeaway from this is, when you're not writing up deals, you put up signs. The signs can be anything that people will pay attention to, doing whatever it is that they're doing in their life, particularly that they would find as they're taking intent to find you. So things like writing content, blog content that specifically addresses the questions that high quality borrowers are asking, things like putting up ads, anything that people would see, which ultimately the things that people see when they're taking an intent, when they have an intent to get the information you have to share, is of the utmost importance. And that does pose some problems, which we'll get to in a second, particularly on the next video, but a little bit here. When it comes to mortgage lead generation, you can only pick two of these. You got cheap, effective, and fast. The reason that it's like this is because essentially, let's say cheap and effective, we can do that if we write blog posts, for instance. We don't have to spend any money to create content. We can go out and write blog posts. I can even set up or you can find other people to set up a WordPress site for you, and you just get a good marketing image going, and you just start writing content. You find questions that people are asking who are in your target market, and you write blog content to them. It'll be very cheap. It'll be highly effective. It's not going to be fast. If you want something that's fast and effective, you're going to have to spend money, because advertising is the only way that you can get fast and effective traffic, and it has to be through a search engine, because that's ultimately when you're going to catch these people at the right time, and we'll get more to that in the next video. Or it can be cheap and fast, but it's not going to be effective. You can go buy leads all day long. They'll be cheap and they'll be fast leads. They're not going to be quality leads though. And it's for the same reason. You can break this down, slice it however you want to. You can only pick two of these. It's just the nature of the beast, and it's why leads are so expensive coming from high quality places like Zillow or Bankrate or any of these lead providers. You need to understand want to have versus have to have. People don't want to have the mortgage. They want to have the house, and they'll spend 2 or 3 years looking for this house, or maybe they spend a month, but they're looking for the house, then they get the mortgage as a means to get the house. They're not spending more time on that process than they have to. So Tony Robbins said, it's not about what we do once in a while that shapes our lives. It's what we do consistently. And again, it comes back to the mindset. That's really what this is all about, is creating consistent habits that we can do on a regular basis to bring in these high quality borrowers based on the way that they're actually looking for these homes. And it's time to get out of a how much dollar per lead mindset. I have people reach out to me constantly and they say, how much is it going to be per lead? How much is it going to be per lead? And It's the wrong way to look at the situation, because not all lead generation activities cost money, and also because buying leads is a poor strategy. I don't sell leads. I set up systems that generate leads, but not all of the lead generation activities cost money. So it goes back to the pick two things. It's like there's multiple ways to bring in traffic, and we'll talk about traffic sources on this next video. Um, but you have to get out of this mindset of how much money am I putting in, how many leads am I getting out, because buying leads is a poor strategy altogether unless you're buying them and you have the budget to buy them from a high quality lead source like I already mentioned. So with that said, we'll go to the high quality mortgage borrower and talk a little bit about defining the profile for this, because this is really the foundation of understanding how we go about attracting these specific individuals. Um, let's only give two parameters, really, maybe an age thing. In 2018, let's say a high quality borrower, just for example's sake, is somebody with verifiable, legitimate, sufficient funds in their bank account. They're in a position to fill out a loan app in the next 90 days. Think about ROI timeline. When are we getting these leads in their buying process? Now we can infer from those two things we can make some assumptions about how this person lives their life. They're mindful of their credit situation and they're confident that they can obtain mortgage financing. They're mindful of where their personal data is going. They're mindful of identity theft, data leaks, spam. They're going to avoid high pressure financial conversations like the plague. Millennials mostly. Like if somebody's my age, 31 or younger, there's a good chance that they're not going to want to have a conversation. If they have to call you from the very beginning, there's a good chance that they won't want to do that. They're going to try to get as much information as they can before they have to have this high pressure conversation, or particularly to be in a situation where a pushy salesperson is going to be trying to dictate the terms of the way that they move on with their life. They're not going to do it. This person's also going to use search engines to obtain information. One second. Let my puppy in. So in 2011, 92% of the US population were using search engines to obtain information. That was the last study I could find on this, because obviously anybody that has a cell phone has got to use Google or maybe Bing. I don't know if they still make Bing enabled phones, probably somewhere, but you have to use a search engine to get information. That's the way that people get information. There's very few people that are using old school Yellow Pages or anything else to get info. And due to the nature of this particular product, mortgage financing, where people have to have it to get another thing, your window of opportunity is extremely small. And I'll get to that in a second. Let's look at these statements from these research studies. According to researchers, 1 of every 8 application for home purchase, 12.1% end in rejection, from the Washington Post. Then we have 77% of borrowers only end up applying with a single lender or broker instead of filling out applications with multiple lenders to see which can offer the best deal. So we put those two data points together. We have about 10% of borrowers that don't have issues that fill out more than one loan app. So let that sink in for a little bit. This is a situation where 1 out of 10 people that don't have issues are filling out more than one loan app, and I would say that's probably a little generous. You know, most people are not wanting to have to go give their information out to more than one place and have their credit pulled multiple times and have these conversations and go through all the disclosures and go through this whole 9 yards, more than one time. So they're essentially spending as long as they have to get this financing lined up, and that's where this comes in. So if we're going to break down the window of opportunity to catch this high quality borrower, this person that has good credit and they've got money and they know that they can get financing, this person's going to start shopping for a home at the very beginning of this process. Maybe this is a 5-year timeline, maybe it's 3 years, maybe it's 2 months. It doesn't really matter. They're going to start shopping for a home, and they're going to start preliminary Google research. They'll probably start financial planning online. They'll look up rates. They'll try to figure out how much to budget. But they'll just make sure that they're good to go, and their search for a home will continue. They're not going to fill out a bunch of stuff at the very beginning, because this person knows that they can get high quality financing. And this is the key. people who have had problems generating high quality mortgage leads need to understand this inside and out, because what's happening is you're not targeting people in the right way based on who they are. This person is not going to search more than one time. If they have a person that's been referred to them by maybe a close friend, family member, or a realtor that they really trust, that they really can depend on for whatever reason, then that could sway this. But let's say that doesn't exist. Let's say there's no the people want to feel like they're in control of this buying process that they're encountering. And unless people make a Google search, they don't feel like they're the ones that are finding the information. Does that make sense? So essentially, if we catch them on a search engine way back early in this process, and we give them free home plans or homes that are for sale, in this specific community, or we talk to them about free down payment assistance or whatever, we naturally have to pull back this whole timeline. So if we're trying to get people within 90 days, we have to assume that this high quality borrower is going to be making this one search right before they come to the close. They're going to find a home, they're going to go utilize a search engine, they're going to fill out a mortgage app, and then they're going to close this deal. And doesn't matter how long this process goes, it's going to be one little moment that you have, as little as a single moment to attract the home buyer to the potential borrower, and to engage them in a relevant conversation using relevant content. And the window of time frame that we have to do that is infinitesimally small. And with that, let's talk a little bit about timing and relevancy, which I'll break down a little bit on the next video as we go into traffic sources. But essentially, your searcher searches, they're making an inquiry. They're saying, I have a question about this thing. It doesn't matter really how they search, but that's essentially the way to look at that. The keywords that you use on your pages and on your ads have to be relevant to the intent that the searcher uses. So you essentially have to have this relevancy from the keywords that you've chosen to go to that. Then the content that you have has to be relevant to your keywords that are relevant to the searcher's intent. Then your landing pages have to be relevant to that. The conversation has to be relevant to that. And so our ability to do this in a way that attracts and engages high quality borrowers at the right point in this journey with this very small window of opportunity, that's what we're working with today. And the inability of companies to figure this out has ultimately been the demise and the nature of the frustration that has come about as a result. And that summarizes today's video. Next up, we'll talk about buying and generating leads, traffic sources, engagement and conversion, and realtor referral strategy. Please like this video, subscribe if you got anything out of it, and give feedback in the comments below. And I appreciate it. We will get back to you on this next video coming very soon.